Good afternoon and welcome to the Middle East Forum Speaker Webinar Series and Podcast. I'm Stacey Roman and I will be moderating this discussion today. We are pleased to have Simon Henderson, Director of the Bernstein Program on Gulf and Energy Policy at the Washington Institute for Near Eastern Policy, join us to discuss MbS of Saudi Arabia, a 6-year assessment. Simon Henderson will speak for 15 minutes and open it up for questions. Should you wish to ask a question, please use the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen to type your question. And with that, I will turn the discussion over to Simon Henderson.
Good afternoon, and thank you to the Middle East Forum for inviting me to do this, and thank you for tuning in and listening to me. I look forward to any questions that you have to ask after I've spoken for 15 or so minutes. By way of explanation, yes, I've got a British accent. Yes, I was born in Britain. I came here, what is now in 2006, 15 years ago. My syntax has largely changed to American, but my accent remains British. By background, I'm a journalist. I still regard myself as a journalist in that what I do is write analysis and write reporting and also edit other people's writing. My reporting, my journalistic experience started at the BBC in their World Service, which was the English language radio. In those days, television didn't exist in the form of BBC World. And my experience there led me to end up in the Middle East. I always wanted to end up in the Middle East, but I made a detour in doing it by being assigned first of all to Pakistan for a couple of years, or just over a year, and then joining the Financial Times, who promptly sent me to Iran for the revolution. Not that I knew anything about Iran, but they figured that if I could survive in Pakistan, I could survive in Iran. In terms of my knowledge of Saudi Arabia, I have to announce one very important caveat. I have never been to Saudi Arabia. I've been to most other countries in the Middle East, but not Saudi Arabia. And so that's a little strange perhaps, but my explanation for that is that initially I wasn't prepared to go through the hoops that they tried to construct in order to get a visa. And then I started to write about the Saudi royal family. And if you do that, it doesn't put you in favor of the Saudi government. And so, first of all, I couldn't get a visa at that point. I wasn't going to be invited. And secondly, today, or in these days, if they were to invite me, I'm not sure that I would actually go. I've been writing about the Saudi royal family since on sabbatical leave from the Financial Times. I wrote a study for them called After King Fahd, which goes back to 1993 and 1994. And I have continued on this. There was a second edition of After King Fahd. There was also a further study called After King Abdullah. There hasn't been an After King Salman. Instead, I wrote a study a couple of years ago, MbS in Saudi Arabia, a 50-year reign, ? And that brings me up to date in terms of the foundations of my Saudi experience. MbS didn't figure in the first two books. He did figure inevitably in the third, where he had taken on the main role. He's an extraordinarily interesting character and breaks the mold of Saudi Arabia and royal succession. He is likely to be the next king. And if he does become the next king, because he's only, coming up 36 years old, he could be there for 50 years. His father, born in 1936, is already of that equivalent age, although not in particular good shape. Was I surprised by MbS coming to the fore so quickly when his father became king in 2015? Not that surprised, because MbS had been running his father's court. His father had been the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. MbS had been running his father's court for 2 or 3 years and was already an influential character. The story in those days was that he undermined successive deputy ministers of defense, because his father was the minister of defense. And I think 4 deputy ministers of defense were appointed and left within less than 2 or 3 years. MbS, when his father died in January 2015, was appointed the Minister of Defense. Not bad going if you're merely 29 years old at the time and have never served in the military. He became Deputy Crown Prince within a couple of months because the Crown Prince Mukrim, who had essentially been foisted on Salman by the previous king, Abdullah, it was pushed to one side. At that point, the Crown Prince became Mohammed bin Naif, who's an older cousin of MbS's, and that setup of the King Salman, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Naif, and Deputy Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman persisted through until 2017, when essentially Mohammed bin Naif was pushed to one side by Mohammed bin Salman, and who became Crown Prince. His father, one of the interesting questions about MbS is the extent to which he runs his father or his father controls him. And it depends, I think, on the issue, and also with the passage of time, that degree of control, that balance has tilted far much more in the direction of MbS himself. A 6-year assessment. What's he done in the last 6 years? And how do we judge it? Well, he is judged. He's an extraordinarily controversial character, and there are not many people around who don't have a view about him. Either that he is the salvation for Saudi Arabia, or he is a risky character who will potentially threaten the stability of Saudi Arabia and perhaps even Western American interests in the Middle East. The jury is out on this one. I'm not going to ask you at the end of this conversation whether how you would vote, but perhaps yourselves would like to just briefly make a note of what your opinion of MbS is at the moment, and then have a look at it in 20 minutes time when the conversation is over, and see if you've changed, and whether I changed your view or somebody else's comment changed your view. As I said, MbS is a controversial character. He's controversial because he is trying to do so much in Saudi Arabia. He's trying to change it. He's trying to make it less the control of the or the influence of the religious hierarchy was always pretty important. It is far less so these days. When I first started writing about Saudi Arabia, I, along with others, used to describe Saudi Arabia as a coalition between the Saudi royal family and the religious leadership, the ulama. And now it is not a coalition, and nor indeed is it the Saudi royal family, because the Saudi royal family, which was large and diverse, essentially used to rule by consensus. That notion of consensus has gone out of the window. MbS pretty well decides what he's going to do, and not many people do anything to go against that. Now, so that's the social aspect of what MbS is trying to do. The economic aspect is that rather grandly, he's trying to move it away from its dependence on oil. Saudi Arabia has the largest oil reserves in the world, essentially, certainly the cheapest to exploit. One could have a rather technical discussion about oil or quasi-oil in Canada and Venezuela, but the oil, as most of us would know it in terms of what you put in a barrel, and then is refined and you end up putting it in your car. The most of that, and certainly the cheapest to produce, is in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Now, it's good that he's trying to move the kingdom away from its dependence on oil. The trouble here is that in order to finance the moves away from that, he is relying on oil revenues. This is an interesting conundrum, particularly when the price of oil, although higher than what it has been, still is less than what Saudi Arabia needs to balance its budget, or indeed end up with a surplus so that the surplus can be invested in non-oil projects. The other aspect, other than oil, of these economic changes is the technocratic changes, the technology changes that MbS is trying to introduce to make the Saudi young people educationally qualified to become part of the economy and develop Saudi Arabia as some sort of technologically advanced country in the Middle East. MbS has been quoted as saying that Saudi Arabia is a natural partner for Israel in terms of technology and trade. This is an indication of where he wants to go. It's also a political indication of where of what he's prepared to do or could be prepared to do. But it's also a bit of a stretch. The particular example which people cite, or is most often cited, about MbS's grandiose economic ideas is this future touristic city of Neom, which is in northwest Saudi Arabia. It's being built there, and it's going to cost $500 billion, and will be everything will be catered for, and it will be a technological hotspot for investment throughout, from all over the world. There was an excellent article in the Wall Street Journal on May 1st entitled "Saudi Crown Prince Vision for Neom, a desert city state tests his builders." And the Wall Street Journal's reporting went through the reasons why this imaginative project might be a project too far, but gives an indication of MbS's drive and his ambition. So social, economic, political, MbS doesn't want to share power in Saudi Arabia. He's not talking about the vote for anybody. He's not talking about democracy. How this is going to work out will be an interesting one to watch. Middle East kingdoms and sheikdoms have never been good on democracy, but they have been prepared to listen to their populations. The extent to which MbS listens to his populations is questionable, and will young Saudi people who are being given good educations and good jobs also accept that somebody else will make up their his mind over what is the best in them for the future? Diplomatically, the question is that Saudi MbS has had some unfortunate adventures in foreign policy. He, soon after he became Minister of Defense in March 2015, even before he was Deputy Crown Prince, he had essentially decided to go to war in Yemen to overthrow the Houthi regime, which had taken over control of Sana'a, the capital, in the last few weeks of 2014, when King Abdullah was distracted by ill health. Saudi Arabia is still in Yemen. What was MbS had hoped for in terms of a quick victory has not happened. Additionally, there's the complication that Iran has seen Saudi Arabia's embarrassment in Yemen and has sought to reinforce that embarrassment with some success. That brings me on briefly to Iran, which is historically the rival of Saudi Arabia in the Gulf. The Iranians call it the Persian Gulf. The Saudis and their other Arab states there call it the Arabian Gulf. For what it's worth, the American government calls it the Persian Gulf as well. But MbS is very worried about Iran nuclear, which might also be part of the reason that there's been contacts with the Israelis, but as yet no official normalization. So that is a major problem as well. Now, I'll bring my comments to an end here, but I'd like to end with the one thing that I haven't mentioned at the moment, which is the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, which is fading in diplomatic terms, and Saudi Arabia hopes it's pushed it to one side. The US government, perhaps by announcing the result of its own investigations, which essentially blame MbS, has also tried to push it to one side. I suspect, sitting here in Washington, that the Congress has not put it to one side, and I don't think a great chunk of public opinion has either. So this could be something which has still to be dealt with, or there might still be developments from. So in terms of a 6-year assessment, positives, yes. Negatives, rather too many. What's his grade going to be? I'm afraid, not being American by birth, I'm not very good at grading in American terms, but there's hope for Saudi Arabia and MbS, but I don't think it's necessarily the bright picture that many would like to depict it as. And so in the language of diplomacy, there are many challenges ahead, but professionally, it's a fascinating subject to look at, and it'll be a great indication about how the rest of the Middle East is going to go. I'll take questions.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. So the first question we have in is from Carrie Hildebrand. How has the recent conflict in Gaza impacted the slowly developing relations with Saudi Arabia in general and with MbS in particular, short and long term?
Gaza is an interesting one because essentially Saudi Arabia has been rather silent on the whole thing. King Salman made a diplomatic phone call to Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah, offering support. And there's also been Saudi support for the OIC, the Organization of the Islamic Conference, in expressing concern about events in Jerusalem. Although Gaza is separate from the West Bank and Jerusalem, in Saudi terms, the issue of the Palestinians and the fate of Jerusalem, or the control of Jerusalem, is very close to their hearts, certainly close to the heart of King Salman, who is pro-Jerusalem in terms of the Muslim shrines there, and pro-Palestinian. And so that's why there's been some activity, or that would explain the Saudi diplomacy so far. As far as I can see, and I've been watching for this, and I may have missed it, but I don't think I have, there's been no particular comment out of MbS about what he thinks of what happened in Gaza and the challenges which remain in sorting out Gaza and ensuring that there's stability there, reconstruction there, not a humanitarian disaster there, and there isn't another war there.
Understood. Thank you. From Jonathan Schiffer, sorry. What are the likely changes in Saudi Arabia or MbS policy towards Israel and Iran as a result of the Biden administration's predilection to rejoin the JCPOA?
The closeness between the Trump White House and MbS was extraordinary and led to many changes in the Middle East and sort of underpinned normalization, even though Saudi Arabia wasn't part of it. Okay, Trump presidency is ended. We now have the Biden presidency, and the Biden White House clearly wants to do things differently, but how differently, we've yet to work out. Their statements can be interpreted in a variety of ways, and we're waiting on action. One of those things is Iran and the attitude of Washington, the new Washington, towards the JCPOA and reestablishing that. I think Saudi Arabia shares Israel's disquiet about how much might be conceded to Iran, or at least in their terms, what would be concessions in this process. And this at least partially explains the reports that Saudi Arabia has been having discussions with Iran about the future. I think they're trying to work out an agenda and at least be talking to each other. The Saudis have accepted the United States has changed, and rather than dig themselves in, they're seeing what room for maneuver they have. I doubt, though, whether MbS and Riyadh is at all happy with what has been going on.
Understood. Thank you. From Terry Whittington, regarding the murder of Jamal Khashoggi, do you think MbS was aware of it? And if so, did he underestimate the optics of the event, or did he just not seem to care?
Well, I don't have any privileged information on it, but like many others, I assume he knew what was going on. After all, the hit team, which went to Istanbul, included some of his closest security aides, and in their carry-on luggage was a bone saw. So it doesn't take much imagination to think Kashoggi was already committed to a grim end at that point. Does he care? I think he's disturbed by the fuss it's caused and thought he could get away with it. This suggests both an arrogance and, frankly, a lack of awareness about how this would go down in the world. Has he learned from it? I would like to think he has, but I'm not sure. There's another case going on, which one by a former Saudi intelligence official, a senior official called Saad al-Jabri, who is in Canada in exile, and the Saudi government is taking action against him. The Saad al-Jabri has claimed in a court document that 2 weeks after the murder of Kashoggi on October the 2nd, 2018, another hit team, a Tiger Squad as it's called, arrived in Canada with the intention of either seizing him or killing him. The hit team was stopped at the airport and the Canadians put them on the plane back. So the Canadian government has an idea of what's going on, but the Canadian government is silent on this issue of whether it happened or not, and whether the claim of Saad al-Jabri is true or not.
Thank you. And this question is from Carrie. Could we see a political reform in Saudi Arabia in the near future?
As I tried to suggest in my introductory remarks, there are a variety of reforms going on in Saudi Arabia. Political reform is not one of them, or not in a way which we would recognize as political reform. But if I twist the question slightly, is it inevitable that MbS is going to be the next king of Saudi Arabia? It's pretty inevitable. The question is when and under what circumstances. But you can't say it's certainly going to happen, and it can't say it's certainly going to last for 50 years. And so you have to at least imagine the possibility that he doesn't become king. Perhaps there is a response from the Saudi royal family, which has sort of effectively been marginalized and frankly scared by intervening, to perhaps given the opportunity to replace MbS, they would. That would be political reform of some sort. What would that mean in terms of the Saudi style of government? probably a bit of a reversion to the previous style, but taking up perhaps some of MbS's ways forward, but without his particular harsh style. Frankly, with MbS, you never quite know what the next surprise is going to be. And there have been a few good surprises, and a few, oh, I wish he hadn't done that sort of surprises. So we have to entertain these possibilities.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. As we approach the end of the webinar, would you like to tell our viewers where we can find some more of your work?
Well, if you go on the Washington Institute website and or go on the internet, I hesitate to say, search, because you usually find that search engine doesn't work in quite the same way that you would like it to. But if you search Henderson and Saudi, you will see Henderson plus Saudi. There used to be a ridiculous number of possibilities coming up there. And if I can point out my more recent work, which is this study on MbS in the Washington Institute Sudden Succession series, and the next 50 years, ? Because I think there is a question mark. Inevitably, it's not a certainty. What the question mark is and how big the question mark is a matter of debate.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Thank you.
Of course. For our viewers and listeners, please join us Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern for an update with Ashley Perry. Thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a wonderful day.